Many people ask me the secret to making big money. I tell them the truth, but nobody believes me. It is not some magic stock or a secret guru. It is about seeing the world for what it really is, not what you want it to be. And right now, what I see is a train wreck in slow motion, a stock market crash coming at us like a freight train, a market manipulated by smoke and mirrors. Let's be real. For too long, we've been living in this financial fairy tale, this illusion that everything's fine, that markets are just going to keep going up, 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 like some never-ending rocket ship to riches. But here is the cold, hard truth. The current market is built on quicksand, manipulated by politicians with short-term gains in mind, and fueled by a collective ignorance of how the real world actually works. Out there beyond the glass towers of Wall Street. I mean, look at what has been happening. President Trump, bless his heart, has been playing chess with the global economy, and honestly, he has been pretty darn effective at manipulating markets. He says it is just a mini-war. It won't last too much longer. The Iranians, they really want a deal. Total nonsense, of course, a verbal smokescreen. But it worked. Why? Because the big shots on Wall Street, the ones making all the trades, they don't know anything about warfare. They're sitting in their fancy offices, staring at screens, completely detached from the dirt and grime of reality. The human cost, the logistical nightmare. It is like when I first got into the coal business, I didn't just read a book, I didn't just look at charts and graphs. I got on a plane, flew to southern Kentucky, and walked into those mines myself. I wanted to see it, smell it, understand it, feel the grit under my boots. Most people, especially the ones making the big decisions, the ones telling you where to invest your hard-earned cash, they don't do that. They don't understand the ground truth, the tangible realities. And that is precisely why we're in this mess, why we're headed for a very rude awakening. But here is the kicker. Trump can't keep this charade up forever. The market's patience is not infinite, and while he is busy pretending everything's fine, playing political theater, Iran has been busy too, striking oil infrastructure in the United Arab Emirates. Now, for decades, the UAE has been tight with Israel, hurting Iran whenever they could, doing everything in their power to damage the Iranian economy. So, this is Iran's way of saying, hey, we remember, and we're coming for our pound of flesh. And the real terrifying question is, what is next? What is the next domino to fall in this increasingly volatile global game of chicken? Trump is stuck between a rock and a hard place. A decision that will define his legacy, the right decision, the smart decision, the morally responsible decision, would be to admit this isn't working, that there is no good military solution, especially for opening the Strait of Hormuz, the choke point of global energy. And let's not forget the humanitarian crisis brewing. Famine is knocking on the door in so many parts of the world over the next 6 to 12 months. A truly terrifying prospect. Nobody wants that. Nobody with a shred of humanity. So ideally, he'd pull back, disengage, find another diplomatic way to solve things. A way that doesn't involve endless conflict. But there are two huge, enormous, insurmountable problems with that. First, humility. That is a word that simply does not exist in some people's vocabulary. A concept completely foreign to their way of thinking, you know? And second, there is Israel, let's be honest. Israel is ultimately the catalyst for this entire war, the driving force behind this escalating conflict. Washington went to war because Israel and its powerful lobby in the United States, its influential agency here, its civilian air supporters, they wanted it. And Trump, initially, he bought into the narrative. He was misinformed at the beginning. He was told this would be quick, easy, maybe 5, maybe 10 days the government would crumble. He believed what the Israelis told him, but guess what? It didn't. Decapitation strikes, killing leaders. None of it worked. It just fueled more resentment, more resistance. Now, we're stuck trying to destroy Iran. Iran, a country the size of Western Europe. I mean, seriously, that is like saying we're going to destroy the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, Spain, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and Italy all at once, in one fell swoop, and you think you can do that in a few days. With the tools at our disposal, it is insane. It is utterly delusional. This whole thing is out of control. A runaway train with no brakes, and Iran has the strategic initiative. They can absorb more punishment, endure more pain for much longer than we can. Their resilience is far greater than we give them credit for. And you know who is paying the price? You are. Every single one of you. Our gas prices are going through the roof. Yours are probably even worse. An immediate hit to your wallet. And it is not just gas, the Strait of Hormuz, that tiny little waterway through which a critical share of the world's fuel, fertilizer, and feedstock must pass. Traffic is down by more than 90%. That is not just a statistic, that is not just a number on a screen, that is a flashing red warning light for the entire planet, a siren call of impending doom. When fertilizer doesn't move, crops don't grow, leading to widespread food shortages. When feedstock doesn't arrive, livestock starve, impacting our meat supply. When fuel doesn't flow, trucks don't run, disrupting supply chains everywhere, heat doesn't come on its own, food doesn't reach the shelves, and that means widespread misery. So yeah, we're headed for nothing short of a catastrophe. The price increases in your grocery stores in the coming months, they're going to make current prices look like a bargain, a distant memory, and your heating bill, get ready. You'll effectively be paying a war tax, a hidden cost of this conflict. This isn't just America's problem. People in India, China, Korea, Japan, everyone is going to be in this boat, facing the same grim reality. And it is going to be worse than anything we've ever seen before. Trust me on that. From a strategic standpoint, we need to wake up. A civilization that cannot secure its own maritime corridors and energy flows is a civilization at severe risk, teetering on the edge of collapse. And this is why, from now on, for many, many years, we'll be talking about resource sovereignty, not just as a buzzword, but as a matter of survival. If you're in business right now, you have to pivot from this thing we used to talk about called just-in-time logistics, a relic of a bygone era, to just-in-case logistics, stockpiling everything. We need to be stockpiling fertilizer, minerals, rare earths, uranium, gold, silver. This sort of thing is now going to be as vital to us as stockpiling oil. A critical national security imperative. A lot of people don't realize it. But after the oil crisis in the 1970s, that is when we began building strategic oil reserves, learning from past mistakes. And guess who has the strongest and best strategic oil reserve? Now, China. And China is faring much better than the rest of the world as a result of these shortages. They're playing the long game. They've got a couple of more months to go before they run into trouble there. We're also in good shape, but we have problems, deep-seated systemic issues. Very few Americans are aware that we import enormous quantities of foreign oil into California, and we have no links to California on the ground in terms of pipelines, no efficient way to transport it. So if we're trying to move fuel or refined gasoline or diesel to California, we have no pipelines, we have to put them in trucks, they have to cross the Rocky Mountains and drive down into California, a logistical nightmare. So California is very much at risk right now, facing an energy crisis. And our farm sectors are struggling because we have a diesel fertilizer cost shock. A double whammy. 70% of our farmers say they can't afford to buy fertilizer. An unthinkable situation. We've had a more than 50% spike in fuel prices over the last 10 weeks. In other words, resource sovereignty has moved to the center. It is no longer a periphery issue, and it is going to affect everything, every aspect of our lives. One of the things that happens in air and missile campaigns is that you begin to destroy whatever you can find, a desperate attempt to gain an advantage. Remember, we've already failed to destroy the underground facilities where not only missiles and drones are stored, but where they're actually manufactured. These hardened bunkers and these facilities are spread all over the country, making them incredibly difficult to find. When you do find them, it is very difficult to penetrate them. They're designed to withstand attacks. And we're pretty confident, based upon what has happened during the so-called ceasefire, that virtually all of their critical assets have been replenished or replaced. Iran is not a pushover. Now we've done the same thing, but I think there was hope that Iran might be too severely damaged to recover. A naive hope. That is not the case at all. So the Iranians are quite ready to fight. They are resilient and determined. And I see no evidence that they're going to submit to Israel's demands, which is really why we went to war in the first place. Let's be honest about it. It is a very bad thing because of the larger position of the world. And I think that is the piece that people are missing. You know, the interconnectedness of it all. Washington, D.C. and New York City, to a large extent, tend to run a lot on drama and hot air, on political rhetoric and financial speculation. But the world, the real world, runs on diesel, on tangible resources. How do you get people to understand that diesel is bread on your table and the steel in your buildings? It is fundamental, it is foundational. Busyness strategies have to change. Now, they absolutely must. They've got to account for massive physical scarcity of food, feed, fuel, and fertilizer. Caused by these closures, these disruptions, people in Washington do not yet completely understand that you can print money, you can run the printing presses all day long, but you can't print energy or materials. You can't create them out of thin air. You can't print the diesel that moves your trucks. You can't print the fertilizer that grows your crops. And you certainly can't print the natural gas that powers your factories. These are real, physical constraints, and once again, we're back to this issue that is very dear to my heart, which is all of the rare earths. We got lots of them. The greatest concentration probably in the world is in North America. But that is not the problem. The problem is refining. We need to be able to refine our own uranium. We don't do a very good job of that. These things now have to happen. It is an imperative for our future. So where are you going to spend your marginal dollar on another missile involved in a campaign that, quite frankly, for reasons of geography and topography, you can't win when you're bringing the whole world to its knees, essentially, economically and financially? That seems rather stupid, doesn't it? You're better off putting your marginal dollar into building rare earth refineries, into investing in our future. You're better off looking at all the transportation networks, water and rail, as well as air. Figuring out what makes the most sense, what is most efficient. You need to look at hydrology, hydroelectric power. Are there ways to power things that don't require carbon-based fuels? If so, where do you put them? Where are those waterfalls? Where you built these massive dams? Do you put things there to harvest energy so that you can run these refineries? All of these things need to be examined carefully, thoughtfully, strategically. And then, you've got to figure out what you're going to do with farmers. I mean, 70% of our farmers say they can't even afford to buy fertilizer, the very lifeblood of their operations. The numbers of bankruptcies are up by almost 50%. We can't go on this way, it is unsustainable. So people ask all the time. They say, well, Doug, we've heard everything you said, you're the military guy. How long can this last? I said, well, it is a question. Which happens first? Do we collapse financially and plunge into an economic recession or worse, depression? Do we simply exhaust ourselves in the Persian Gulf trying to make something happen that can't happen with the tools at our disposal? The Chinese have now built a connection into Iran from Pakistan that goes down to the port. I think it is called Gwadar. It is on the coast of Pakistan, not far from the Iranian border. In fact, it is about 50 to 60 miles from the Iranian border by road. That means you can truck things from that port directly into Iran, and you can also export through that port. That port was built by the Chinese as part of a large Belt and Road project, a strategic investment. Okay, are you going to attack that port now? Are you going to attack the ships that move in and out? I mean, this thing can go as far as you want it to for some period of time, but you're going to exhaust yourself militarily and you're not going to change the outcome. And you don't want a larger war that puts you into confrontation with China or Russia or anybody else if you can avoid it. It is a dangerous game. So, I don't know which happens first, but I think they're both going to happen. We're going to exhaust ourselves and we're going to have a terrible financial crisis, much worse than 2008. That much I can say with certainty. Everybody wants timing, but none of us has the crystal ball that tells us exactly when. One of the questions that we all have in the United States is how much gold do we really have? But when our European friends ask to have their gold repatriated from the United States, and most of it is in under the streets of New York City, believe it or not, there is a large cache of it under the West Point, the U.S. Military Academy. Then you supposedly have it in Fort Knox. So, we need to take stock of gold. A real accounting, now. The interesting part is that I'm sure you're aware that there are countries around the world, the Russians included, who recently sold some gold in order to become more liquid. They're preparing. Right now, the Japanese are probably going to dump large numbers of our treasuries because they need liquidity in order to deal with threats to the yen. This is the other aspect of this problem that we haven't really understood very well, and that is the de-dollarization, that more and more of the world is going to do business in currencies, other than the dollar, a seismic shift. A lot of people are obviously going to move to the yuan, that is clear, and I guess the yuan at some point is going to be more directly linked to gold. Now maybe there is somebody out there that wants a basket of precious metals as backing, I don't know. But I think gold is going to be the centerpiece of everything. I think gold is already effectively the reserve currency, not the dollar. Wake up and smell the coffee. Stay boring. Stay patient. Peace.